Okay, here's our setup, and we just have our Fuel It ethanol sensor in the 3/8 line size. These pieces here, actually, you could make these yourself out of some steel and a spacer. They're actually out of a well-known kit that's on the market right now, and high-quality pieces. I mean, if you want to buy yourself out that way, that kit also comes with a stainless steel line, or a braided line I should say, and some fittings that work really well. Personally, the reason I didn't use it is I just wasn't comfortable with the routing for that line, although it's a very high quality line and PTFE as well, so it's good stuff. Nothing wrong with it at all. I just opted to go this route. And this is our Gates hose, which is, let's see here, it's the Gates Barricade hose, and I looked up the specs on this online, and it looks like it's more than suited for what we're doing here. And then, well, just your Dorman end fittings here, and your fuel injection style hose clamps. So I took this off just so we could get a visual on how it was set up. It's been on there, like I said, for around, I think, 8,000 miles or so, and we just finished race week with it, and no issues whatsoever. And what I kind of liked about it is where the line came around and connected to the fuel rail here, I could actually take it loose if I needed to pull fuel to change my ethanol content at the track once I got there, like if I wanted to run up to E50 versus driving on like 91 only to the different tracks. So it gave me a quick disconnect point to get into the fuel system. I then had a hose I plugged in, and I could run off and into my fuel jug and drain it out as necessary with the by commanding the fuel pump on in the PCM, which I just used ForceScan for. So you know, this is my setup. It works really well for what I'm doing, and although there are many other ways to do it, but I think this is pretty safe if you're comfortable. You'll see that the line's actually wrapped up. It's not bare hose. I used what's called Coroplast tape. You can also get it off Amazon. I believe it's Teslong, not Teslong, Tessa, I think is the brand. I'll try and put a link in the description as well for that. But it's an abrasion resistant tape that all the OEMs use on their wiring harnesses now under the hood, and it's very abrasion resistant, and it's a fire retardant as well. So just wrapped it up in that for extra security. You can see that this thing's held up just fine this whole time, and works pretty good. So this is just my setup, and may not be for everyone, but it's what's worked out really well for me. All right, here we are installed, and you can see here's our flex fuel sensor under the cowl here. Let me get some light. We'll see if we can make that look a little brighter on film. So just mounted it with the mounting bracket. There's a heater tube right here that has a hold down bolt, and that's what the mounting bracket's secured to, and then the sensor's secured to the bracket. Here's our Dorman fittings, push lock fittings, and then our Gates hose, a fuel injection clamp, and there was one loop of hose that goes to the factory high pressure fuel inlet tube. This is where the factory line connected right here. And then for the other side, going into the flex sensor, it just comes out and loops around, and there's actually a nipple on the firewall, which I don't know if you can really see that back there, but there's a nipple that loops around to, and that's where the factory jumper harness connected. It would set like this underneath the heater tubes. So I just took out the factory jumper, which is just nylon, pretty common OE nylon line they use, and we're using this Gates hose, which is rated for ethanol. It's rated for fuel injection, and these clamps are also fuel injection style clamps, so they're designed to be a more constant tension. And then these plastic connection fittings, similar. If you look, I mean, that's what they use factory. This is a plastic nylon style, I believe, fitting anyhow. So it didn't worry me too much knowing that these are designed for this kind of work, and everything's held up pretty good. Been on here for about maybe 8,000 miles, give or take, and we just finished Rocky Mountain Race Week. So been through the heat, been through all the all the stress, I guess you could put it through for the time being, and everything seems to be holding up really well. So power, I just ran along the cowl panel here underneath the trim panel, and then there's a line of 20 amp fuses right here. It's the 4th fuse up, which I need to look in the schematic, but I want to say that one was for the accessory power points in the vehicle. They're on a delay, so when the ignition shuts off, the power shuts off to this as well after a certain amount of time. So I'm pretty sure that's the fuse that I selected. It's been a minute, but jumper harness, which you can buy off Amazon, these little taps work pretty well for this type of thing. But that way you can just remove all this if you need to later. So then you just do everything else through the Fuel It app, and you can see the ethanol content, and it's worked out pretty well in our instance. Okay, so here's the fittings that I've used, and these Dorman ones are available at about any parts store. They were off the shelf where I got them, which was down at O'Reilly's, and I used 4 of these to connect the hose to the sensor. They seem to be pretty resilient. They're rated for, you know, what we're doing with them, and seem to work out pretty good. So 3/8 is the size, of course. Next part that we're going to use is that Gates Barricade hose. This stuff is rated, you know, for E10, E85, E15, ethanol. Seems to work out pretty well. From what I can tell looking at the features, it was designed for what we're doing. The Fuel It sensor itself, I use this particular kit here, which just includes the sensor and the Bluetooth module. And I went with the short part number 379. That's going to get you the Continental sensor with the mounting holes, and then you just plumb it up like I had shown. Clamps, I use this particular design here. This is the incorrect size range. Again, there's multiple in stock, and I just couldn't find it on their website, but it's for the 3/8 size, which actually, since this is off ID of the clamp, that might be it. I don't know the OD of the hose per se, but this design clamp, you don't want to use a worm clamp on fuel injection hose because you can end up, the worm will gouge into the outside of the hose, and so this is what I went with on this one, was this here, which is designed to more evenly grasp that hose and clamp it down. We used to call them fuel injection hose clamps.